Welcome back to part 2 on how to make male foam cosplay body armor. Let's get back to those shoulders. Okay, here's my shoulder pattern. I drew it out, and if you look in the design, you can see the shoulder and the way it curves up. And then I really like the design. To get this dome and curve that I want, I have to do this in 2 pieces. So I know from distance to distance, this is the angle, this is the distance I want. So I'm going to go ahead and now cut that right down the middle. So now this is half my pattern. And I'm going to take my paper to make the duplicate of what I want to do. So I know this is where it ends. What I want this to do is I want to have this curve up. And how am I going to do this? This is the piece, and I want this dome up. So the way I'm going to make that dome up, I have to force this foam to kind of come up. And let's have it start right here. Curve up. So this will be flat. I'll have this curve up. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead, take my Sharpie, and I'll make these, because I'm going to have to make registration marks, because I'm going to cut this in foam. So let's do that. There it is. Now, get this guy cut out my registration marks. I'm definitely going to need these. Now that I have this, we're going to do a test. But before I put on a piece of EVA foam, I have some nice 1/4 inch upholstery foam. I always like to have this around the shop because this is what I use when I do test patterns. So to make sure I get this curve and it's going to look like I want it to look like, there you go. I got my 2 foam pieces. Right? And what I'm going to do is I glue these guys together. I'm going to use some good old-fashioned 3M Spray 90. But if you don't have 3M Spray 90, you can still use your Barge Cement. Okay, got my Spray 90 on there. Let's line these guys up. Let's go ahead and start with the front here. All right, there we go. Now, you curve it, see? I like it. Tell you what, let's go ahead and take a look at it and see what it looks like on the body. There we go. Some straight pins here. Let's just pin on temporarily right now. Got this. That's nice. I like that. I got it. Comes off like I want it to, and it come up and curve. With my new curve, my flatten out range, what I really like. This, so I'm officially labeled it, my armor shoulder piece. And I went ahead and add a little notch detail piece. And I trace these out. Before I put this together, I want to go ahead and heat these up and pre-curve these. Get a curl into them. Put it, glue on, got 2 coats, and I'm ready to go. Try to keep your eye on your edge. And make sure you get your marks lined up. So. Wow, you know something? This looks good. I'm liking this. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, now that we got that all figured out, got my body chest piece back on, and I've dropped some paper in here on my center line. And you see, I kind of plotted out my pattern, so I know where I want the armor to fall. So it's going to be my lip here, and this piece here, and my abdominal. And I'm happy with this. So let's go ahead and work on the back side. Now, as you can see, I had my back, this is the back side, and you can see I kind of work on, once again, when I'm working, I have my designs I'm going from. So I have my stuff I plot out, got what I wanted here, and I'm looking at the back, and I'm plotting this out. And this is where I had to have that shoulder piece, because now I worked out the shoulder piece. I was able to gauge where I want this to end. So this ties in really nice with the front, and it comes around and it meets up back here. So I have my edge. I have the width I want and the edge here. Because when you're working and building stuff, don't forget to sometimes periodically stop and stand back and take a look at it. Get back from a distance and look at what you're making. That's why the designs come in really handy, to have all this kind of thought out first. Get it done. So now I'm looking at this. I'm really happy with this. Got my back. Got this all drawn out. So I did my front piece and I have my back piece now. So let's go ahead and take these out and cut these out and make patterns from these. All right, here's the paper patterns. This is the front chest, the lower abdominal armor. As you can see, I went ahead and cut it all out. And now that I have them out, these armor pieces, I want them to overlap. So what I have to do is I have to extend an inch on these patterns that I already have. So how I go about doing that, so go ahead and just trace them onto another new piece of paper, extend the extra inch, which I've done here. See? Got it, did my inch. So now it's the same pattern before, but I have them extended as an inch. Because these pieces, once I get it, and as you can see in the template, I cut slots for registration, so when I transfer this and trace the foam with a Sharpie, I'll have my marks to where I need to cut. And this is going to be drop down to 45, and this guy's going to be able to overlap without changing my pattern at all. And as you notice too, I put detail registration marks too as well in the pattern, so when I go to the transfer, everything will be symmetrical. All my parts have been cut. So now what I want to focus on is the lips you have here. This is our pieces of armor. Got this chest, the second piece, and got the third piece. They're going to overlap. So this recession line I have right here, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to bevel this all out. And once again, I like doing all this stuff when everything's still flat. Right here, there. All my parts, I have rounded the edges, beveled them down, heat sealed them, and I'm ready to go. Now normally I would go ahead and just start heat forming them and piecing it all together. But on these particular parts, the detail, there's these nice, clean, straight edges on it. And I would do that with a wood burner and a ruler. I like doing that while it's flat. So let's do that first before I start heat forming the parts. Let me introduce you to the wood burner. This tool is great. As a matter of fact, you're probably saying, where can you get this? I have links below my YouTube video, and you can see for wood burner, and you click on that, it goes to Amazon. As a matter of fact, guys, anything on my supply list below on Amazon, anything you buy from that link below helps me. The more guys you shop, the more points I get. Therefore, I can stay home and make more videos for you guys. So with that being said, on this particular one, we have various tips on the burner when you buy it. It comes with. I'm going to use the real fine tip this time to do some detail work on our armor. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this up, heat this up, and let's start burning. What I used to do, I like to use a metal straight edge so I can push my wood burner up against it. It's a nice, good, clean edge. Now with my burner, start right here. Go nice and slow. And you want to pick a speed to go at when you're burning, because you can get inconsistencies if you go too slow, because the burner, even though if you're not moving, it'll make a big spot. So you kind of pick a speed, a nice slow speed when you're burning, because that'll determine your width of your burn. But just nice and slow. Now for the detail, these circle pieces right here, this is going to be added detail. I made a mark on my pattern. So where I take the trusty Dermel with my big sanding drum, and you kick it on a high speed. There. There's my detail. Okay, now we got this all in place. I went ahead and just heat formed my foam armor. I'm going to pin this in place. Let's take a look at it. Get my center line, line it up. The abdominal, once again, I kind of heat this up, and I'm particularly curve it. I kind of bowed it out a little bit too. That curved down a little bit. So now we got that. Let's go ahead and pin that sucker in place. Looking good. Get it lined up. Now that the armor's done, let's talk detail. What I like to do, as you can see right here, I have my, of course, my neck guard in here. And how I went about doing that was I took a piece of paper, pinned it, of course, traced it to the desired shape that I wanted, transferred the foam, glued it on. And of course, my rivet details, which you know is the old Dremel trick. And this right here, I took made a template from like this kind of a thin plated armor I want to do out of thinner craft foam. Made a template, traced it onto my pre-existing template to make a template so I can make sure these guys fall symmetrically. So you can see I have them right here. And of course flip them, made my Sharpie marks to where I can place the other ones. So once again, they'll be perfectly symmetrical. And this little recessed circle I like to do, this little particular trick I like to show you. What I do, I can show you right here on this piece of armor. You take a good sharp X-ACTO blade and do your circle all the way through. With the same piece of foam, you go all the way through, and then you just push in all the way, see? And now I have a slight recessed. And I could do that on both sides for that desired effect. Also, if you're doing something different, you can also do it coming outward if you want, put like a big rivet or whatnot. But for this particular costume, I'm going to do this and take some thinner craft foam and do like a little switch, like a little lever here, a little detail, like that, to add some more detail. This is really good. Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and finish detailing the rest of my parts, and then we'll come back to sealing. Well, while I'm doing my detail work, I have some like rubber tubing I'm putting on, and it's a little bit of a technique I'm going to show you guys. I figured while I was doing the detail work, I'd just go and show you this particular technique. Now I know I got people out there going, Ted, where do you get the rubber tubing? I'll discuss that later. Let me just talk about this technique. As you can see, on my shoulder piece, I have this kind of like concept of like the some kind of electrical wiring on my armor suit. So I wanted to get these rubber tubing on here. And what I do is I took my measurements and made my Sharpie lines to where I want these tubes to go. And when I lie these guys on, I create myself a little bit of a spacer. So I glued these two on, and to keep them the distance I like, with proper measurements, I made myself a spacer. So I can make them perfectly symmetrical, so they go on nice, clean, and even. So I did my measurements and did the math and figured out what it is and how thickness it needed to be. So I kind of drop in like so. This is how I get them on nice and even. I give myself a little bit of a spacer. Now granted, a lot of people like the freehand stuff and just do it with a Sharpie line, but it just makes it a little bit easier. So I give myself a little bit of a spacer right here. You can see there. And then, good old super glue, a little trick that Bill Duran and I both like to use a lot, is I like to put a little bit of a bead of super glue just on my foam, but I don't. And I just lay this guy on like so. And I lay it against my my spacer, therefore when I do it, I can just kind of push evenly without the fear of it moving and becoming messing up the space between my two pieces of rubber tubing. Therefore when you do that, it stays nice and even. So now it's kicked off, what I do is I take my spacer out, and just flip it around and do the other side. Now you could make a longer spacer, but always find that when I'm putting pieces down, I like to do it in sections, opposed to trying to glue the whole thing down in one shot, because the chances of you messing up or getting it crooked are pretty high. So I just kind of like lay it up like this. So get my spacer, repin it, lay it on my rubber part right there. There, see now, take my pins out. See now they lay on there really nice and even. Okay, I've got that going. Let me go ahead and get back to my detailing. All my parts are done, and I got the detail completed, everything I want to do on it. Now, since these are different pieces, my choice, since the fine detail, I'm going to seal the foam with good old-fashioned Plasti-Dip on this particular suit of armor. But before I do that, there are three things I like to do before I put any sealant or coating on my foam. Number one, heat seal your foam. Like all EVA foam, it's very porous. And when you put any kind of like sealants or glues or everything, it's going to soak in. So what you do, you want to limit the soaking in, because if you look in your actual foam on the other side where the factory is pressed an impression into it, it's dense and it's tough, got a skin on it because it's been heat sealed. So you're basically going to do the same thing. And how you're going to do that is with your trusty heat gun. And if you watch the foam, you can watch it and you can see it melt as you heat it. There, see? Now, it's got a nice, you can kind of tell it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. But now, when you go to put something on there, it'll have a tendency to build up on the layer because you kind of sealed the foam so it's less porous. So that's what you want to definitely do, heat seal that before you start coating. Number two, before sealing also too, there's gaps and holes and sometimes in your foam costume when you're making things. And there's different ways of sealing certain things up. People have different choices. I particularly like Kwik seal. And on this particular shoulder piece, there's a seam on it I have. And when I glue it together, and granted I could try to put more glue and pinch it together, it's just going to build up and make it look even worse. So before I seal this, I take a little Kwik seal and of course my putty knife, and I just want to feel the trench. And you don't need a lot. I'm going to put a little bit right here. And just kind of fill in my gap with this. Now remember too, Quick seal, a lot of people like to kind of put stuff in, like Bondo, and go back and sand it later. You cannot do that with Quick seal. Quick seal is just that. It's basically a sealant for and I use this to strictly fill in gaps and nothing more. Once I do this, I kind of wet my finger and go over this, smooth this out a little bit. But once you do this, you can come and paint over this with anything like latex or Mog Podge or whatever you're using to seal your foam with. You can definitely go over this. And the cool thing about Quick Seal too, if you finish your piece and you start putting your plastic dip or coating, what you choose, and you start to see spots, you can still go back and do this, and it takes paint really well too. But I always like to do this first before I seal it, or before I put any kind of coating on my foam. But you do this and let this dry, and you'll be good to go. Number 3. Now that you get your parts done, patched, and ready to go, and you heat seal them, before you start coating, I like to put on hanging tabs. It's a little trick I learned from my buddy, Bill Duran over at Punish Props. It's a great pick point. This is, once again, it's just temporary. You glue it on the back and have something to hang on to. As a matter of fact, get one of these cool, trusty clamps you get at any hardware store, and some baling wire to make a long hook to hang it on a bar or a rack outside when you paint. So I clamp, hang it, and you're good to go. Also, when spraying, don't forget to get yourself a respirator. I got a good old 3M respirator with charcoal filters. The stuff is really toxic, so you want to make sure you have a respirator when you're spraying. Now I got that, everything with clamps on and my respirator. Let's start coating. Here we go. Got my spray booth going right now. Got my little my hooks. I'm ready to go. And my plastic dip. And I like to do it with lots of thin coats. So now I'm going to start laying on some thin coats. Don't forget your respirator. Once again, like I said, when I spray tool dip, I like to get that first coat on there and let it dry a little bit before spraying the secondary coat. It's just, that's how you build up your layers. Like, coat it, let it dry, and then build on top of that. Because if you keep laying on top of it when it wets, you'll more likely get drips. So it's just good to let each coat dry between. All right, that completes them all. They're all properly coated. Got all my pieces. Also, when I coat, I like to get the outside edge, but definitely really focus on the inside edge and a little bit on the inside as well too. Kind of go beyond your lines where you ever need. Get a nice good coat on it. Now that's done. Also, just a note, I used 2 full cans to coat all this armor. So 2 full cans of plastic dip to get all properly coated. Now before we do anything else, or straps or any of that stuff, while everything's all still apart, the next step is painting. Well, when it comes to painting, I want to get a little bit more detail, which will end up being on another video. So this pretty much wraps up part 2 on how to make male foam cosplay body armor. And this is you guys' first time watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe to the link below. And for all you people asking for my supply list, it's just below my video, which is linked to an Amazon account, which is directly to me, so no extra cost to you. Every time you guys shop to the Amazon link below, I get a percentage of that, which is great. That means I can just turn down jobs, stay here, just make videos for you guys all day long. So please, if you're going to shop, do the link below and right here on the Evil Ted channel and help support me. Also, guys, if you're new to me, also too, follow me on Twitter at EvilTed40, and you also guys can find me and contact me on Facebook at EvilTedSmith.com. All right, catch you guys next time right here on the Evil Ted channel.